Reality TV often makes claims of change, redemption, and the thrill of starting over. People were fascinated by the young men and women in Breaking Amish who were leaving behind hundreds of years of custom in search of freedom when the show first aired. One of them was Sabrina Burkholder. People connected with her because she was honest and open. She wasn't just another character, she was what made the story moving. Behind her quiet smile and statements on TV, though, there was a much scarier story going on than what the TLC cameras could tell. You will cry as you read about Sabrina Burkholder's sad journey from Breaking Amish, a story that will make you cry. At first, the face looked like it was full of hope. A young Mennonite woman named Sabrina Burkholder got her start in reality TV when she joined TLC's Breaking Amish in 2012. At first glance, she looked like any other cast member who was brave enough to leave the strict rules of religious custom behind and try out modern freedom. But Sabrina was never just one of the other people. There was something about her that made her stand out right away. She had a vulnerability that you don't see very often on TV. It was raw, and it made every word she spoke and every feeling she felt stronger. Some people were upset by how honestly she spoke, and pulled other people in with the same force. A lot of reality stars wear masks for the cameras, but Sabrina didn't seem to have one on at all. Her openness was enticing, and watchers will never forget it. She stumbled through her journey, not with practiced lines or a stiff upper lip, but with an honest shaking that showed a soul holding a lot more weight than the show's premise could hold. Being so honest made a strong link with the audience, but it also put her out there. She smiled and laughed hesitantly, but there was a storm going on behind them that would almost kill her one day. People who watched on TV saw the staged drama, fights, tears, and reconciliations. But they couldn't see the scars she wore into the stage or the demons that were whispering just outside the screen. This is not just the story of a reality TV star. A woman who was raised in a religious family is stuck between what her family expects of her and what she wants. The sudden attention of fame and the pain that had been inside her for a long time before she went on camera. To understand Sabrina Burkholder is to find the thin line between staying alive and falling apart. And it's hard not to cry when you hear about her whole journey. Through her Amish roots and to reality TV fame, Sabrina's story started in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, where the fields never end. There are more buggies than cars, and people not only follow custom, they live it with unwavering devotion. Lancaster is the center of the Amish and Mennonite religions. It is home to villages that still follow traditions that are hundreds of years old. Sabrina grew up in this place, where things were simple and obedience to religious rules was expected. Growing up, she followed the Mennonite faith, which was less strict than the Amish faith but still had a lot of rules. Being humble wasn't just a suggestion, it was a demand. Obedience and discipline were not just good things, they were necessary. People were encouraged to fit in, and being unique was seen as a threat to the group order. Such demands could be like chains for a child who is trying to figure out who they are. People in Sabrina's society didn't like it when she did something different, and the need to express herself often ran into problems with deeply held rules of modesty and silence. When Sabrina joined Breaking Amish, she went somewhere she had never been before. Even though she wasn't Amish, she was cast with Amish people, making her the only Mennonite in a group where everyone else was seen as different. This made her stand out on screen, and her background both set her apart and defined her place in the story. It made her always feel like she had to compare herself to her co-stars and to the people who watched with interest. Being the outlier among the outliers made every tear, slip-up, and statement seem even worse. Sabrina joined the show for more reasons than just her job. It was a jump into the unknown, a chance to find freedom outside of Lancaster and the strict rules she had been raised with. People were interested in her trip because it wasn't perfect or simple. She was honest about her struggles with faith, identity, and the pull of her roots. She stumbled and accepted that she was weak. She let the cameras catch her at her weakest. Because she was honest, she became one of the most remembered characters in the series. But the world outside of Lancaster was not as nice as she thought it would be. Reality TV made her known, but it didn't keep her safe. Behind her nervous confidence was a young woman who wasn't ready for the constant attention that fame brought. She brought with her into that world unresolved stress and pain, and the quiet marks of a life lived under a lot of stress. Reality TV would soon bring up old wounds that would be made worse by the spotlight, pulling her into battles that no one could understand. The dark shadow of the spotlight. Reality TV is based on lies. It usually doesn't tell the whole truth when it talks about fame, attention, or even freedom. For Sabrina, the cameras made her private problems worse instead of better by letting her hide them. Every question, mistake, and breakdown was blown up so that millions of people could see it. TLC turned her life into a story. The network recorded fights, faith crises, and emotional breakdowns, and put them together in shows that were fun to watch but didn't help people get better. For watchers, these were important parts of the story. For Sabrina, they were real fights that were being shown on TV so everyone could see them. Fans couldn't see how much pain was going on behind the scenes. She was dealing with severe loneliness, unaddressed trauma, and the constant weight of being seen as weak and broken. People watched and made guesses. As soon as the camera stopped rolling, Sabrina was left to deal with the effects of how her story was told. Instead of being free, she was stuck in another cycle of control, this time by the entertainment business instead of her religious education. Fame didn't make things better. It brought chains, holding her hostage to a story she couldn't change. With each passing year, the weight of expectation, the scrutiny of millions of people, and the never-ending circle of exposure cast a darker shadow. Her life had turned into a show, but her real problems, the ones that were going to almost destroy her, were just starting to show. It's hard to be a young mother. Behind the cameras of reality TV shows, Sabrina's life was falling apart in ways that not many people could fully understand. She was more than just a star on a popular TLC show, or another troubled young woman whose mistakes kept millions of people interested. She had kids. That job gave her a weak anchor in a world full of chaos for a while. But the burdens of being a mother and her ongoing problems hit her hard, and by 2015, she had lost custody of her daughter Oakley. It was said that the pain of being apart from him hurt her more than any other loss. Olivie was more than a kid to Sabrina. She gave her a chance to make things right, a chance to build something good and stable even though her past had been unstable. She was able to fight the urges that were pulling at her because she was holding her daughter. But when her drug use and unstable living habits got in the way, the state decided she wasn't fit to live on her own. Overnight, her biggest source of hope was taken away, leaving her with a terrible hole. The custody fight may have seemed like just another exciting plot point in a show that loved big events. It was the subject of online commentary, whispered conversations between fans, and shocking news on entertainment blogs. For Sabrina, though, this wasn't part of an episode. It was not a part of the show. Piece by painful piece, her life was falling apart. There was a huge gap between her life and what other people did for fun, and it often made her feel like she was unnoticeable and like a cartoon. Grief stayed with her in her private life long after the cameras stopped rolling. She wasn't just sad about losing her child. She was sad about the security she could have built and the chance to be seen for more than her mistakes. That loss was the first of many that made her fall further and further. Addictions take over. As the show's seasons went on, Sabrina's private problems became less private and more open for everyone to see. Her problems with the law were no longer whispers, they were in the news. Arrests for having illegal drugs, plot charges, and breaking her parole over and over again became signs of her decline. These humiliating and raw moments were broken down and played over and over again, not as stories about a woman in pain, but as parts of a bigger story. The Class A drug heroin was at the heart of these problems. This drug has broken up families. It's not true that heroin just dulls pain. It kills and eats away at both the body and the soul. It says it will help, but in return it takes life itself. Heroin was a terrible boss for Sabrina. It made it hard to make decisions, strained relationships, and caused people to miss court dates, break vows, and lose trust. Her drug abuse wasn't a clean story of weakness. It was a never-ending pattern of short-term recovery and relapse, with each event making her feel even worse about herself and her hopelessness. That being said, stopping here would be like confusing the sign for the reason. Sabrina's downfall wasn't caused by her addiction. It was just a sign of something more sinister. It was how her scars looked on the outside long before she ever tried drugs. Her drug use wasn't just a way for her to rebel or hurt herself. It was her last-ditch effort to stay alive and a way to numb the pain she couldn't face any other way. From the outside, her story might have seemed crazy and even dangerous. On the inside, though, every time she relapsed or failed at staying sober was linked to pain that would never go away. Sabrina wasn't defined by her addiction. It showed how deeply she wasn't fixed. The stress that made the spiral worse. Over time, the cause of Sabrina's pain became clear, which changed everything people thought they knew about her. She allegedly said that she had been abused as a child. It wasn't easy for them to say these things. Trauma like hers grows in silence, twisting around identity, influencing decisions, and leaving marks that others can't see, but are very real to the survivor. The abuse didn't happen all at once and stay in the past. She carried that hurt with her through every part of her life. It took away her safety before she even knew what that meant. It took away her trust in other people, hurt her sense of self-worth, and made her always look for a way to escape memories that got louder every year. Drugs are said to have given her that freedom. Heroin made the images less clear. Pills made the edges less clear. The pain from her youth kept following her into adulthood, but each high gave her a short-term shield. Outsiders thought it was self-destruction, but it was really just a way to stay alive. She wasn't looking for pleasure every time she used drugs. She wanted to be left alone. A lot of people only see addiction in broad, easy terms. Bad choices, not following through, and a lack of moral strength. But the truth was much more complicated in Sabrina's life. Her sad path did not start with a desire to escape or a natural tendency to be careless. It came from scars that were never healed and traumas that were never recognized. It came from a child who had to carry too much of a load before she could fully develop herself. As an adult, she was still going through the same pain phase.